All right, there we go. All right, so one of the big issues that we've been seeing, and I've talked about this before, but one of the big things that we're seeing from a mental health perspective, we're seeing this in youth, we're seeing this in, this is the old midlife crisis idea. These are some of the things that we're kind of seeing as being a really big deal now, and the DSMs actually came out and said purpose deficit disorder is one of the most growing mental health issues that we have. And so I kind of wanted to go through some of that because it is super duper important. Without having a purpose, without having a reason to be doing the things you're doing or guiding you in your life, it's you kind of feel lost and like you're out in the middle of nowhere. And I wanted to give you some biblical stuff on that one, some scripture on that one. So Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet of the nations. The idea that you had a specific plan and a specific purpose built inside you, that you're important and that you have something that you need to do is throughout biblical text. So the idea that, there was a life set up for you before you were even born is pretty big. It's throughout, Psalm 139, for you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. So the idea that there is a plan, there is a purpose, those type of things are, again, very, very important. This is the type of thing that when people feel lost, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know where they're going. When you sit down and you kind of figure, okay, what is specific to you? What is important to you? What is it that makes you tick? The things that you find inherently important. When you start going through those and you start figuring out, the things that matter to you, integrity, loyalty, whatever it is, the things that you can do. Like I can wake up at 4:00 in the morning for 10 years and read medical research. Fascinating to me. It's awesome. I love it. People ask me all the time, like, how do you make yourself do that? And I'm like, I don't make myself do it. I like doing it. I want to do it. It's one of those things that if it wasn't specifically put inside me, I don't think that I would want to do it. I have recognized the idea of reading research every day for hours isn't on top of the list for most people. But it is for me. And I'm sure there's things in your world that most people would also find boring. The thing that you can do for hours and hours that you actually are really good at, that you're just like oddly good at. People ask you like, how'd you know that? Or how can you do that? And you're just like, there's just something I can do. That's the thing. That's kind of what we're looking for. So, the purpose for each one of us, for we are God's handiwork. This is Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's handiwork created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. So the idea that there's a reason for your existence is all throughout the Bible. It is all throughout everything. And it almost kind of goes as a foregone conclusion because a lot of the Bible is talking about how you're supposed to do the thing you were put here to do. It's, don't do these things, do these things. This is kind of the path when we, don't lie to people, all the things of like how you're supposed to be. It's in your pursuit of the thing that God put you on the earth to do. So that's kind of where a lot of this purpose is. Now, the problem is that when we start to lose sight of purpose, when we don't have purpose, when we don't seek it out, that's when we feel lost. That's when we feel like, you're spinning your wheels or you're just, there's just nothing there for you. And we see it a lot. And then you'll read stories about this where people just, were kind of drifting or they were teenagers and they were doing, they were doing bad in school. They were getting, messed up with, drugs and stuff like that. And then they kind of, woke up and found the thing that they were supposed to do and they highly dedicated themselves to it and it radically changed their life. And, everything about them has become better. The depression's gone, the anxiety's gone, or at least it's directed in a specific path where they have your direction and purpose. That's the biggest thing. When we start working on mental health, especially with men, one of the big things that I have found is the reason they're here, the purpose for them being is the thing that sustains and gets them through. A lot of times we'll be like, guys come in and they're, stuff happens to them and they're rocked and they're just like, broken down to their core. And the thing that keeps them going is their kids. Like, I've got to do this for my kids. Like, if I got to be this person for my kids, I got to do this thing for my kids. Your kids is their purpose. Like, that's part of your purpose, is to develop these young people into something that is more important, that is greater than yourself. So again, when you look at the things that people draw the most, strength from, the things that, guide people's lives, it's their purpose. It's the thing they're here for. What we used to do is we used to kind of sit down, and this is, again, goes back to community. It goes back to the way that the society was 50, 60 years ago, when you had a group of men who would get together and they bring the younger guys in and they would talk to them and they would kind of figure out and kind of help them derive what their purpose was. And the way they did that was they were, doctors and lawyers and architects and, engineers and accountants and, all the types of people. And you would get to sit and talk to these guys and figure out, what is it you do? What is it you do? What is the difference here? What is the difference here? And it was much easier to figure out, oh, hey, it's this way, or maybe this way, or it's kind of in between these two things. And so it was much easier for people to figure out the path that they were supposed to go on, the things that were the most intriguing to them. We've lost a lot of that because we've lost our community. And so now what ends up happening is, people are on social media or they're on whatever, and they have no idea where to go. So you see this a lot in midlife crisis. People come in, they're like, I'm making much money, and, or I'm making enough money to survive. And, I've got my family, I've got this, I have all these things, and I don't know. I don't know what to do. I guess I'll go buy a Corvette. Like, that type of an idea. They've realized that they've done all the things, but they haven't found their purpose. They haven't found the thing that they're supposed to do. The idea that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Yeah. Like, as someone who gets up at 4 and starts reading medical research and comes and works on people all day long and then goes home, and, it's funny because one of the things we do is I have a service where it's a concierge service. So I'm at service all day long, and it'll be, 9:00 on a Saturday, and someone will ask me a question and I'll answer it. And they're like, how do you do this? How do you work this much? I'm like, I don't view it as working. Like I was on one of the ID Life trips where I was, after I developed the detox box, I'm on the beach and I'm literally laying on the beach, and I text Rachel and I was like, do we have any blood reports or anything for me to look at? So she sent me a bunch of work, a bunch of patient stuff so I could start, going over it and sending it back, because that's my purpose. That's my thing. That's the thing that I will do forever and I will never get bored of. And it's awesome having something like that. So I would highly recommend, if you guys haven't done any courses or done anything or worked with anybody to find your purpose, do that. If you haven't sat down and just really kind of worked through on your own, do that. And if you have, and you haven't really kind of narrowed in where you're supposed to go, do it some more. This is a really, really big deal. When we talk about mental health, when we talk about physical health, when we talk about longevity, all the things, finding your purpose and living and working through your purpose really is the thing that, from a mental health perspective, gives you the ability to keep going on. There's a lot of people like people are bashing Erica Kirk because she didn't lay around and cry long enough after Charlie was assassinated. It very well might be that this is her thing. Like, she was part of this whole thing the entire time. And this is the way that she honors, respects, and pays tribute to his purpose and her purpose and their journey together. I think the reason that people think it's weird that she went back to work is because they hate their work and they want any excuse to get away from it. When it's your purpose, it's the only thing you want to get back to. When bad things happen, you're like, I'm going to go lose myself in work because I can at least, find solace and peace and function in the thing I was put here to do. So, that is one of those things that if you haven't done this is hypercritical to overall wellness. When we talk about, when I make the comment that, 40 to 60% of all of your health and wellness is psychological and mental, this is the biggest part of it. It's what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to do it? Because once you find your thing, everything else comes into play. You're like, well, you should study. Oh, I don't want to study stuff. But like, look at the guys who, like, when you were really into something you enjoy, like, I can give you my example again. I will read medical research until I have to go do something else. So I'll watch podcasts and seminars and things like that on, on psychology and stuff like that. I love Peterson University. Like, it's one of the things that I watch in my free time is lectures on psychology. So, once you find your purpose, lean in hard. And it could be being a mom. It could be being a dad. Like, it doesn't have to be a career, but that's the thing. When you find your thing, lean into it. You're designed to do that. That's what you're supposed to be doing. If you can find your purpose and live in your purpose and live it out, that's one of the things you're supposed to be doing. So if you feel like you're lost, if you feel like you don't know where you're supposed to go, find your purpose. And if you need help doing that, I'm not the only one who does it, but just sit down and kind of figure out, the things in your world that, from books, from movies, whatever, that made an impression on you. The things that you're like, yeah, I identify with these people, these things, these actions, these ideals. Trace that down, follow that through, and then try to figure out what are the things that people do that are in the same vein that, are the things that are important to me. If you like to help people, medical's great, legal's great, first responder, police and fire, like that's amazing. If you like to protect people, if you like to, there's all sorts of things you can do once you figure out who is it that I kind of am at my core. Like, where are the things that best exemplify the things I want to be? If I was going to design somebody who is going to be the best version of me, my individual personal self, what would that look like? How do I get from this point to that point? What would that person do? Like, those are the type of things that you need to ask. And it's funny because, like, when I work with teenagers or, college kids, when I work with, divorced dads, when I work with people in midlife crisis, this is the thing they haven't really done. They've always thought about, the idea of doing it, but they haven't really gone all the way through it. And it's really, really cool when you go through it. So I'd highly recommend that you guys kind of sit down and kind of figure that out, because when you look at, the strongest people mental health wise is people who understand their purpose and are working towards it. So keep that in mind. If you guys have any questions, hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com, or you guys can just drop us a DM. You guys have a fabulous day. Thanks for your time.